This particular man from Belcoo was a good smuggler, but he was a lazy kind of a smuggler. He always took the easy way out. So he had a bag of tea that come from Belcoo to Black Lion. Tea was very scarce in the south of Ireland, and tea and sugar was scarce in Northern Ireland. So the sugar was going north and the tea was coming south. So this man was dealing specifically in tea. Tea was £1 a pound. So anyone that knows about money in 1940, a pound was a lot of money. So if you had a £40 of tea on your back, you had £40 notes on your back. So he was coming up the railway with his bag of tea on his back. The Red Bridge is out the road there and it's dismantled, it was blew up the time of the Troubles. He was coming up the railway, he crossed the Red Bridge, up in, come out in and into Black Lion village. The railway was running that time. The main road that we see at the minute was not the main road then, it was just a private avenue into a house, and he'd walk out the avenue into the house. The tip for the tea was one of the local pubs in Black Lion village. He met a B-man, and the B-man was he'd be a kind of a half policeman, we say. You remain like they were junior policeman or whatever. So the B-man was armed, on duty, watching the railway because there was a lot of smuggling done on the railway. So a man shouted a man to the best of his ability, and during the course of the conversation he got the gun of him. So he said, "My good man now," he says, "I'm throwing the gun in the river and you go home and I'm going on meet hay." But the B-man cried and he pleaded with him to give him back the gun, and he says, "No one will ever know I met you. I have a wife and 3 children. If I go back without the gun, I'll lose my job, I've nothing to live on." So the man that was smuggling was a decent man, and he thought the other man was a decent man, so he gave him back his gun. So he headed for Black Lion with his bag of tea. But when he landed Black Lion with his bag of tea, the Southern Customs were waiting for him and took away the bag of tea. So that little story in itself, it shows you that he was let down by trusting. So we were always taught to trust people. So when you hear stories like that, it's very hard to trust everybody.
If you weren't a smuggler, like, you were no good. You know? Oh, well, I was living out near, beside Loch McNean, you know, a road a mile from the main road out to where my uncle lived. And it was a short distance across then with a boat. And it was a full-time smuggling job over there. You bring over loads of stuff and I'd draw it to the road maybe a mile on a tractor. All car parts that time, tyres. A whole car probably coming part bits. Yeah. 500 tyres at a time. The customs nearly caught me father smuggling back in the 30s. They had to sleep a whole night in the graveyard. The customs went home. That's the old graveyard down at the lake. Yeah, they were smuggling sugar. My mother used to do a lot of smuggling of butter and bread. Customs took loaves off them one time. Crossing over the Red Bridge here by the railway.
Mostly around here, cattle would have been a lot. They would swim the cattle across from one side to the other. Now, cattle would have been the most important thing, you know. And as I lived up in the bog, and I had a dog called Grinty, which we used to ramble a lot out the mountain. And the men would be bringing the cattle from Kilty across. And they always used to have it watching. They'd be coming to me and ask me, "Did I see the police anywhere?" And run up to the top of that hill and see, "Can you see a policeman anywhere?" You know, but they'd be coming with the cattle. Yeah. They'd be watching for the... Yeah. So I was a kind of a lookout.
Yeah, lookout. My mother sent me across the border for the butter was much cheaper. Just across a few fields from the house, that's where my husband was. So I got more than the butter there.
A local farmer that was into pigs in a big way, you know, he had rare pigs, boners to call them, that'd be about 6 weeks old when he'd be selling them. So there was a better sale for them in Northern Ireland. So he used to smuggle them across in a boat. Now, you know, pigs are very noisy boys. So what he used to do, he used to come into the town here, into the village here in Black Lane, and he'd go round the pubs and get all the slap drink, the Guinness and beer. That time they were bottling their own Guinness and beer, and to slap out that there, he'd bring it out and he'd give it to the pigs, and they'd all sleep. And he'd just lift them and put them into his pickup, drive down to the lost shore and throw them into the bottom of the boat and sail across. there wouldn't be a noise out of them. So that's how he used to swim to bring his pigs across. The flour then was a big thing because our flour here on this side wasn't making good bread. It wasn't properly processed, and if you bought a loaf, there'd be a seam, half the loaf you'd have to throw away. So it was nice to get the northern bread that was perfect at the time.
There was a big battle up there in 1940, at the start of the time the phony war was on, and there had been seasoned flour of people going over, and this night a whole group decided to go down with donkeys and horses and carts and all. There was about 200, I'm sure, involved. Went over to the Marlbank side over there. That's near the caves are. And they came across with the flowers and donkeys and carts and all over. And the customs had seen them going down, you see. So when they were coming back up, they came out to stop them. And they had guards with them and the whole lot, but they weren't fit for them. There was so many of them coming in a wave at them. And then they started lifting stones off the ditches up there and started firing them at the guards, and a real riot ensued, you know. And the next day, you know, they got through with the flour, a lot of the people did. But the next day, you know, the yards sent in reinforcements, and the yards went round the houses, and any man that was injured at all was injured, Lord, was summoned. So it made the front page of the Irish Independent about this war was started between the English and the Irish over flour, and they put it in as a sort of a political story. And it made the front page of the Le Monde, the French newspaper in Paris. But there was one, you see, a lot of people had donkeys. So they went up and they gathered up 6 or 7 donkeys that were about the fields and brought them down. And had them up behind the barracks, seasoned them, by the way, you know. And there was no one coming to claim them, you see. So a couple of days, the yards, of course, had to feed the donkeys. A couple of days later, this old man came down and he had a horse and cart with him, on a horse and cart. And he stopped at the barracks, and he was very athletic. He was hardly able to walk. He got down off the cart and he went into the barracks and he says, "Guard," he says, "I want to report I lost a half a dozen donkeys or so. I had them up in this bit of land and they're all gone. You know, I want to report that they must be missing or stolen." Of course, the guard looked at him and he says, "Oh, come out here and I'll show you." Show you how donkeys out the back. He says to him, "Oh, no, guard, you're great. You found them already." So he was glad he had rid of them, you see. When donkeys there and them bellowing and so anyway, he came out the road and they tied on the donkeys behind the cart. And he went out, they were sitting on his cart yonder with these donkeys tied with ropes behind them. He was claiming them back for the law, you know. And there wasn't much they could do about it either. Sure, it was stupid, you know. Lifting donkeys. Sure.